What if I told you that one of the Indiana Fever's most puzzling coaching decisions this season might not have been about rotations, fatigue, or even strategy, but about sending a message to Caitlin Clark? That's right, Jason Whitlock, one of the most polarizing voices in sports media, has hinted that head coach Stephanie White's benching of Chloe Bibby could be a subtle jab, a chess move directed not at Bibby herself, but at Clark. Today we're breaking down the controversy, the Fever's struggles, and what it all means for Indiana's playoff hopes. Let's rewind for a moment. The Indiana Fever, after years of being at the bottom of the standings, entered this season with more optimism than usual. Why? Because Caitlin Clark, one of the most hyped rookies in basketball history, was set to transform not only their offense, but the entire franchise. Ticket sales skyrocketed, national TV slots increased, and suddenly the Fever were relevant again. But the excitement didn't last long. Caitlin Clark's rookie year has been plagued with injuries. First, hamstring problems, then groin issues. She's only suited up in 13 games this season. 13. For a team built around her presence, that's devastating. And when she went down again on July 15th against the Connecticut Sun, the Fever had to scramble. In her absence, the Fever have lost 4 of their last 5 games. Their record sits at 18-16, which is respectable. But without Clark, the offense has become one-dimensional. And that's where the controversy begins. Enter Chloe Bibby. If you've been following the Fever closely, you'll know her story. She wasn't supposed to be a major piece of this puzzle. An Australian forward, Bibby signed mid-season and quickly made her presence felt. She provided energy, shooting, and hustle off the bench. In the game before facing the Washington Mystics, Bibby dropped 11 points in limited minutes. Fans loved it. Analysts took notice. She seemed like the kind of role player every playoff-bound team needs. So when game day rolled around against Washington, most expected Bibby to at least see the floor. Instead, she got a DNP. Coach's decision. No injury, no foul trouble, just glued to the bench. Now, most times when a player doesn't get minutes, it's chalked up to rotation adjustments or matchups. But Jason Whitlock, never one to shy away from controversy, had a very different theory. In response to a fan on X, formerly known as Twitter, Whitlock suggested that coach Stephanie White benched Bibby not because of basketball strategy, but because she's been trying all season to send a message to Caitlin Clark. His exact words were, because Stephanie White has spent the season trying to make a point to Caitlin Clark about ball movement. This makes White overcommit to every off-the-street point guard the Fever sign. Sims can't defend, White afraid to play Bibby and Sims at the same time, so she sat Bibby. Priorities. According to Whitlock, White is obsessed with hammering home the importance of ball movement to her young star. To make that point, she leans heavily on veteran guards like Odyssey Sims, even if it means sacrificing productive forwards like Bibby. In other words, it's less about Chloe Bibby and more about Caitlin Clark. Stephanie White has always been a coach who values team ball. She preaches movement, spacing, and balance. If you listen to her post-game comments, she repeatedly brings up one theme: we can't get stagnant. After the Fever's recent loss to Washington, she literally said, "It's almost like we gave the ball to Kelsey, Mitchell, and tried to watch her work, and that's not when we're at our best. Yes, we certainly want her to have the ball in her hands, but we have to continue to get movement with and without the basketball, and it was getting stuck." That's White in a nutshell. She hates isolation, she hates hero ball, and when Caitlin Clark, who is used to carrying an offense, is on the floor, it's understandable why White would want to emphasize movement. But here's the question. Is she overcorrecting? Is she making decisions that don't necessarily give the Fever the best chance to win in order to drive home a philosophical point? Let's talk about the guard situation. Since Clark went down, the Fever have been scrambling to patch up their backcourt. First they signed Sydney Colson, then Ari McDonald, both ended up injured. Enter Odyssey Sims. Now, Sims is a veteran presence, but as Whitlock pointed out, defense isn't her strong suit at this stage of her career. Pairing her with Bibby, another player still adjusting to the WNBA's pace and defensive demands, could create mismatches that opponents exploit. That might explain Bibby's benching, but Whitlock thinks it goes deeper. White wants to showcase and trust her guards because that's the system she wants Clark to buy into. So is she punishing Bibby, or is this just a coach trying to force feed her system? Either way, the optics aren't great when your young spark plug comes off a solid game and then rides the pine. Everything in Indiana revolves around Caitlin Clark. The franchise is tied to her hip for the foreseeable future. The coaching staff, the roster moves, even media narratives, all of it connects back to her. So when Whitlock says Stephanie White is trying to make a point to Caitlin Clark, he's not just talking about basketball philosophy, he's talking about a power dynamic. White, as a coach, knows she can't let her star rookie run the show unchecked. Coaches who do that lose locker rooms. But at the same time, if Clark feels micromanaged, or if the team sacrifices wins just to make a philosophical point that could create friction. This is the tightrope White is walking right. Jason Whitlock loves controversy. He thrives on throwing out theories that spark debate. Sometimes he nails it, other times he's reaching. So how credible is this particular take? On one hand, there's evidence. White's comments about ball movement, the guard-heavy rotations, Bibby's unexplained benching, it all lines up with Whitlock's theory. On the other hand, rotations in the WNBA are often matchup based. Coaches make quick adjustments depending on who's hot, who's healthy, and what the opponent is doing. It's entirely possible that Bibby just wasn't in the game plan that night, but here's the kicker. Perception matters. Even if White wasn't consciously trying to send a message, fans now see her decisions through that lens. And once that narrative takes hold, it becomes part of the story. So where does this leave the Fever? Despite the injuries and the controversies, they still sit at 18-16, fighting for playoff positioning. Kelsey Mitchell has been phenomenal, carrying the offense in Clark's absence. But White herself admitted she doesn't want the team to be too dependent on Mitchell. The Fever's identity crisis is clear. They're caught between building around their star rookie, developing role players like Bibby, and chasing wins in the short term. And those goals don't always align. Looking ahead, the Fever face the Connecticut Sun on Sunday. Different matchup, different challenges. Will Bibby get minutes this time? Will White adjust? Or will we see more of the same guard-heavy approach? At the end of the day, here's what we know. Stephanie White wants her team to move the ball. She doesn't want them stuck in isolation. That's her hill to die on. Jason Whitlock believes she's using lineup decisions, like benching Bibby, to hammer that point home to Caitlin Clark. Whether you agree with him or not, it raises an important question about coaching philosophy. Should winning now take priority, or should a coach stick to their system even if it costs them in the short term? For the Fever, the answer might define not just this season but the next few years of Caitlin Clark's career.